According to ShotSpotter, you are most likely to be gunned down between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. every Friday morning. The city of Cape Town has recorded 220 confirmed shooting incidents in the month of July alone across Hanover Park, Lavender Hill, Manenberg as well as Nyanga, with 37% of those shootings happening in Hanover Park alone. The city says the location and the exact time of these shootings help law enforcement to respond to crime. Yaseen Johaar is the secretary of the Hanover Park Community Policing Forum, who's now joining us live. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Looking at the data that has now come out, is it fair to conclude that Hanover Park is probably the most dangerous community or area in the city of Cape Town?
Good morning to you, Aldrin, and to the listeners tuned in. I wouldn't say perhaps that is maybe a way it is then probably referred to, but Hanover Park is actually a very love-caring community. The statistics maybe speak otherwise, but we believe that the statistics don't speak about the community and you know, but it more in I would say that the lack of public servants and doing their work in a community like Hanover Park that is filled not just only with gangsters and gang violence, but we should also remember that there's a high unemployment rate, a high teenage dropout rate, and poverty is just rife.
Yeah. So wouldn't you say that all of those elements that you've just spoken to actually contributes to the question that I've just put out, and that is that Hanover Park is the most dangerous community in the Western Cape or in the city of Cape Town, because of the other variables that you've just mentioned now?
Look, in a one sense, I would agree fully, but in the other sense, I would say no, because if that is the case, if social ills and the lack of social development is the cause, then why spend billions on crime technologies, you understand? We're looking at about 20 million spent on the ShotSpotter technology in Hanover Park alone over, I think, a 3 or 4 year period. That 20 million is just basically, we believe that it could have spent in better ways, you know, looking at the root cause of crime. If you take Hanover Park and the circumstances as it faces, and you take any other lavish community and you give them the same circumstances, high unemployment rate, teenage dropout rate, you know, high drug addiction, those lavish communities will also become a Hanover Park. So we believe that had the 20 million, which is actually a lot of money, had it been spent, you know, we even divided up into the amounts of months that there is. I think it comes out to more than 500,000 rand that the city spends in Hanover Park alone on the ShotSpotter technology. Spending that on our schools, you know, on unemployment, on our youth, we believe that way gang violence would have decreased dramatically.
Then the stats saying that the shootings occur most, this is now looking at Hanover Park, shootings occur often between 9 and 10 o'clock, between 8 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning, and then Saturdays were the most active with around 19 shootings that have been confirmed. As a community, how do you navigate that particular space? Because at the end of the day, this is where people do reside, and you find children as well. And sometimes, right here on the show, we read of stories of children being hit by stray bullets.
To be honest, you don't navigate, you just deal with it because there's no other way. No family would want to raise their loved ones in a community where on their way, when teenagers, where school children on their way to school, there's shootings. When adults is on their way to work, to school, to work, there's also shooting as well. So you're basically forced, because there is no other way, you're forced to raise and survive in this community. Hearing between 50 and 100 shots fired in a day in Hanover Park is a norm, you know, and something that you cannot become used to, because the sound of a gunshot going off, it scares the soul out of you. So it's really difficult, you know. Our community is traumatized, our community is suffering, and if you look at the amounts of shootings and the amounts of murders happening in Hanover Park, you would think that is, or you can compare to a modern day warfare.
Yeah, and we know there's no war happening in Hanover Park. With the data that is now coming from the ShotSpotter, what should happen How should the state respond with the data, the law enforcement element to it, but I also do take into consideration the part that you mentioned about the socio-economic conditions of the community members?
Look, I'm going to be frank. I believe that, I believe that the issue around the ShotSpotter, there wasn't really community participation. Here you have 20 million spent on this technology, but yet crime in the community has not decreased. It either been consistent or from time to time it has increased. We would have expected that, before just rolling out, even the time when it was piloted in 2016, there was concerns around, look, invest into the social needs and elements, because now you're having all this data, however crime persists. And so we believe that, you need to, it will always continue no matter what. What makes Hanover Park unique is that besides the ShotSpotter technology, the drones was also launched in Hanover Park. You also have your 60 leap officers launched in Hanover Park. You have this new state-of-the-art, the aeroplane eye in the sky that flies over, from time to time. And then you also have CCTV cameras. So that is just, look, if it worked, I'm not saying that technology is not a good thing, around for law enforcement agencies, but we're saying that if you spend so much billions on these technologies, and the crime trend and the crime pattern has not decreased, I mean, so which means there is something at fault here, and we're saying that it's because it's just a result of the other factors around teenage dropouts, unemployment, because Aldrin, the amount of killings and murders where gangsters are concerned is high, but there's just enough recruitment taking place of youngsters. So we can't even say that the gangsters is actually dying out because of the amount of murders.
Yeah, and sometimes you wonder whether there is an appeal for the children to be part of these gangs, or are they forced into these gangs?
Well, if you're having if I'm a youngster and my circumstances makes me, there isn't food in the house, there isn't bread on the table, my parents cannot buy me my parents cannot buy me or give me a meal, a basic meal, because that's what the situation we're suffering in Hanover Park. You're having 9-year-olds running around and shooting, so which means that automatically, if those are the circumstances, my father's not working, the circumstance, I'm not justifying actions, but surely it's pushing youngsters in the line of gang violence. I also believe on a personal level that there isn't really a political will, and that the fact where the introduction of ShotSpotter is more business than really trying to curb crime, because at the end of the day, the only ones that we believe, or that I believe, is benefiting of the ShotSpotter project is basically those who have invested into the technology, and reaping the benefits for its expansion in communities like Hanover Park and surroundings.
Yeah. The Community Safety MMC in the city of Cape Town, JP Smith, told News 24 that as far as they are concerned, what the ShotSpotter actually does is that when there are shootings taking place, it allows better deployment of law enforcement and Metro Police officers. And since the inception of the ShotSpotter, would you say that things have really changed for the community at all, if anything?
If the statements coming from government officials that is saying that the situations has decreased and changed for the better in Hanover Park, then unfortunately I would say that is not correct information. The situation on the ground, and every community resident, and then at the end of the day, I'm not speaking only for myself, but the representation of the community. Every community member will tell you the circumstances in Hanover Park has not changed. It has actually gotten worse, where our kids can't even leave their own homes. They can't even sending a parent sending the child to school becomes a fear. Last year, whilst a particular high school in Hanover Park were writing the matriculants were writing their finals exams, they had to do their final exams in daily shootings. So every day that they came to come write, there were shootings.
Yeah, just finally, do you think that there's any link between the upsurge in gang violence to the arrest of Ralph Stanfield? Do you understand also that he is expected to appear alongside the former MMC, the MMC in the city of Cape Town, Malusi Boy, on the corruption charges at a later stage in court? But do you think that there's any relation or correlation whatsoever between his arrest as well as the increase in gang violence?
Well, I'm not sure if this I cannot answer you with no factual information at this time, but remember the ShotSpotter has been piloted in 2016 as well, before certain circumstances became prevalent. So we cannot blame because of specific trends or specific things that's taken place. Again, any community that has a high unemployment rate, a high teenage dropout rate, the circumstance that Hanover Park is faced with is automatically going to be around teenagers, and youngsters will be around in circumstances. So I would say, what I can say is that blaming particular circumstances for the situation that is currently prevailed, and for a community like Hanover Park, I would say that wouldn't be the case. However, should those billions, if we're having in our community initiative involving youth, why should we try to scratch deep in our pockets in order to have a youth initiative, present them with food or a meal or a snack? But when and then there's maybe through the departments, there's lacks of funds because shortages. But when it came to the investment of billions into technology that cannot, present results, the expenditure for those, the amounts budgeted for that is in the millions and in the billions. So yes, again, particular isolated incidences, occurrences happening in the gang, atmosphere is not really the reason for the situation that we face in. However, I would say lack of addressing social ills and root causes to crime.
Well, devastating that you're also saying that 9-year-olds are part of gangs and carrying firearms. Let's see how the state responds to this. Thank you so much for your time. Yaseen Johaar is the secretary for the Hanover Park Community Policing Forum. Really appreciate your time. Still to come.